Welcome to episode 2 of The Lone Teacher. You're sure ready for another day of e-learning. I'm excited, and I even have a new hat, and a student was kind enough to loan me a horse. This horse's name is Curly. Curly, are you ready for another day of e-learning? It's exciting. So make sure you have everything you need, and I hope you can come along for the ride. Curly, Mingo, are you guys ready? Yes. Hi-yo, Curly, away! Welcome to another day of pre-algebra. And so I'm glad you guys all could join me. And Curly here is with me today. And so we're excited to begin another week of e-learning. Curly, do you have anything to say? What's that? Oh, Curly, wearing the mask over my eyes doesn't help keep me from being sick. I should wear it over my mouth? But Curly, if I do that, then I can't talk very well. And so, Curly! Whoa, Curly must have fallen and he can't giddy up. And so, we'll just leave Curly down there for a while. And we're glad all of you could join us. And so, you guys did a great job of sending me pictures of your assignments. Make sure you got the notes printed off. I think I gave you all the permissions and everything that you need. We're trying to get better at that. And so, we're excited that we're ready to continue. Today's homework is going to be kind of more difficult, and so make sure you pay attention. But you do have a video of it, and so you can re-watch. Maybe for some of you it's easier to subscribe to the channel. And so I don't know about all that stuff, but we're figuring it out. And so this is notes number 111, I believe. Is 111 prime, Tucker? No! 1 plus 1 plus 1 is 3. 111 is not prime. It is 3 times 37. And so a lot of people think 111 is prime, but no, it's divisible by 3. The sum of the digits, 3. Okay, so last time we were talking about rational versus irrational. We had some trouble with the video. I think today it's going to be better. And so if you look at, we're going to have the square roots of numbers, and you could just, if it was your homework, you take the first problem, you just type in the square root of 75. Well, if you type in the square root of 75, it's like 8.66025403, but it doesn't stop there. It goes on. It never ends, and it never repeats. And so it is irrational. So if I said write down exactly the digits to the square root of 75, you'd never finish. You'd start writing now, and you would write the rest of the day, you would write the rest of the week, you would write the rest of your life, and on the day that you think you can't write anymore, you still have infinitely many digits left to write. And so writing the square root of 75 exactly is no good. And once you round it off, like you say, well, the square root of 75 is 8.66. Well, that's not true, because if you take 8.66 and square it, you get 74.9956. It's not exactly 75. It is not exactly the same number. And so, just like when we talk about fractions and we reduce them, and it's exactly equal to the original fraction, we can write equivalent square roots. And so it's kind of like reducing them. But what we're doing is pulling out any factors that are a perfect square. And so that is what we're going to talk about. And to help you on your notes, I have given you the first 20 perfect squares. And so when we're factoring 75 and want to see what goes into it, you're really only interested in looking for these numbers that go into it. Not just any old random number that goes into it. You're only interested in those because those we can take the square root of because the square root of those are rational. They're a perfect square. And so we're going to look at that. And so we'll start by reducing the square root of 75, by simplifying it. And so you write the square root sign and you ask yourself, is there anything that will go in to 75 that I can take the square root of? What do you think? Thomas? 25. Yes. See, 75 is 25 times 3. And so which one of those two numbers can I take the square root of? Well, Thomas said we can take the square root of 25. And so right here, the 25 is going to make a break. It's going to break out of jail. It's a 25. I don't know which way to go. It's a 25 underneath the square root sign, but then when it comes out, whoa, you can't see it. It's only a 5. And so it's going to make a break. And so this 25 is going to break out of the square root sign, break out of the prison, and when it breaks out, boom, it becomes a 5. Well, its buddy's still in jail, the 3, and it's not breaking out because you can't take the square root of 3 because it's irrational, 1.73, blah, 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 blah. And so he stays in. And so our final answer is 5 times, but you don't put the dot or anything, times the square root of 3. The 25 breaks out as a 5. The 3 stays in. Okay? That was our first example. We got more. If I thought you'd understand it with one example, you'd only get one example. But we got more examples, and so bear with. Let's look at number 2. On number 2, what goes into 18 that I can take the square root of? Well, what are the factors of 18? What do we have? Ryan, 6 and 3. Well, that's good. 6 times 3 is 18, but can I take the square root of either of those? Are any of those in this list? No. So I don't really want to do the square root of 18. What else? Well, we could do, see, what you want to do is look at this list. You start at 18. Here's 18. See, it's right there. Does 16 go into 18? No. Does 9 go into 18? Yes. And so 9 times what? Well, that'd be 9 times 2. And they're both under the square root sign. But one of them's going to make a break. We going to bust this joint. We got the Lone Ranger, and we going to get him out of jail. Although the Lone Ranger puts people in jail. I'm wearing the white hat. I'm the good guy. Oh, I got to remember. And so we're going to see the 9. We can take the square root of 9. We got a 9. 9. And it's going to make a break out of jail. Boom! As a 3. It's going to break out. And so the 9 comes out as a 3. And the 2 stays inside. Poor Mr. 2. But the 9 says, I'm out of here. As a 3. And so that's 3 square root 2. Let's do the next one. The square root of 8. What goes into 8 that I can take the square root of? Joseph, 4. Yes, but look out for golf balls. And so the square root of 8 is 4 times 2. And so which one can I take the square root of? 4. The 4 is here. We're making break for it. We got this. Whoop, boom. It's going to break out as a 2. And so, but the other 2 stays in because you can't take the square root of it. And so this guy comes out. Woohoo! We're out of this joint. And the 2's out and the other 2's in. Now, let's talk about the square root of 128. The problem is some of you are going to go, 4 works. And it does. And if you do that, we will be here all day long. It'll be longer than a coronavirus vacation. 4 times 32. And if you say, well, 4 will break out. Well, yep, you're right. 4 will break out. And we break the 4 out, and it becomes a 2. And the answer is 2 square root 32. But is that good? What's that, Curly? Oh, wait, Curly, giddy yapped. Curly, 32. 4 goes in. Yeah, but something bigger than 4 goes into 32. We'll be doing this again. What else goes into 32? Oh, 16. Whee! 16 whee! Goes into 32. And so this is going to be 2 is already out because 32 is right here. So don't say 4 goes in again. Start at where 32 would be and go. Does 25 work? No, 16 works. Start with the biggest one. And so 32 is 16 times 2. Well, who can break out of this joint? Well, the 16 can. And what is the square root of 16? Phoenix? 4! Look out for golf balls. And so this comes out as a 4. Now, does that make a 42? 42 square root 2? No, no, no. It does not. Ainsley, what's out in front? What's 4 times 2? 8. Very good, Ainsley. Nice job. That's 8 square root 2. And so the square root of 128 ends up being 8 square root 2. Now, how could I have done that in one step? How could I have done that in one step? Owen, what is it? Oh, yes, see? Look at where 128 is. 128 is way up here. And we know that 121 doesn't go in, and 100 doesn't go in, and 81 doesn't go in, and 60. Oh, 60. We could have done this as the square root of 64 times 2. And if the square root of 64 times 2 is 128, see, the 64 can break out. Lone Ranger's here. We're out of here. And so we're going to break out the 64 as an 8. And see, look, it goes out. Boom! And that's how we just get 8 square root 2. See how we go straight to there and skip all those steps. So it pays to know your factors. And it pays to multiply. Let's look at number 5. We already have a 3 that broke out of the jail. Is there anybody else that can break out of the jail? What times what gives you 12 that we can take the square root of? Peyton. 6 and 2? Which one of those can we take the square root of? Square root of 6? Nothing nice. 2 point blah, 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 blah. And so we don't want 6 and 2. Peyton? Oh, 3 and 4. Great job. And so this is 3 times 4. Now, the first one, you're right, isn't necessarily the one that breaks out of jail. It's the one that you can take the square root of. I can't take the square root of 3, but I can take the square root of 4. And the square root of 4 ends up being a 2, and it breaks out of jail. And the 2's out front. Now, does that make a 23? No! It makes 2 times 3. 2 times 3, square root 3. And 2 times 3 is 6. And so this ends up being 6 square root 3. Great job. Now, the square root of 30. We want to simplify this. What times what gives you 30? Let's see. Connor, what times what gives you 30? 10 and 3. Connor, can I take the square root of either of those? No. Connor, what else gives you 30? 6 and 5. Great job. Let's try 6 and 5. And so we'll try 6 and 5. Connor, can I take the square root of either of those? No. Connor, you think I'm tricking you? No, tricks are for kids. But this is kind of a trick because there are no perfect squares that go into 30 except for 1. And we could do 30 times 1, and then the 1 breaks out as a 1, and then it's 1 square root 30. And then what gives you square root 30? Well, that's 30 times 1, and then square root... Well, no. That's like my dad. He always told this joke. Pete and repeat were in a boat. Pete fell out, and who was left? Repeat. Pete and repeat were in a boat. Who fell out? Pete fell out. Who was left? Repeat. It went on and on forever. So you don't want to be taking the square root of 1 and the square root of 1 and the square root of 1. So if you look over here, 25, 16, 9, 4, and 1, none of them go into 30. So Connor, you were right. Mr. Nyson kind of gave you an impossible question to solve. The answer is just the square root of 30. Let's jump down to 2 square root 112. Let's move this up a little bit. And so 2 square root 112. What is the biggest perfect square that goes into 112? Well, what you want to do is start right here at 100. 100 doesn't go in. 81 doesn't go in. 64 doesn't go in. 49 doesn't go in. Or does it? What goes in? Well, Mr. Nyson, 4 does because you look at the last 2 digits. 112 divided by 4. Oh, wait, that's 28. That's 4 times 28. And so if I had 4 and 28, is there anything that goes into 28? Well, that's like a 4 and a 7. So what perfect square would have went into it right away? I don't have these memorized as well. Oh, 16 right here, 4 times 4. And so the easiest way to do this would to rewrite, so you don't have to do it in multiple steps, is 112 is 16 times 7. And most of us would have started with a 4 first, but it's better to start with the 16. 16 times 7. Now the square root of 16, whoops, I didn't put it on highlighter. The square root of 16 is 4. And so we're going to break that out as a 4. And no, it's not a 42. It's 4 times 2. And so 2 times the square root of 112 equals 8 times the square root of 7. Now, some of you have calculators, that Casios and stuff, that will simplify square roots. Don't be using those buttons. You got to have some self-control. See if you can do it. Make sure you can do it, and then you can check your answers. Yes, I'm such a good student. I would never just use the button. And so make sure you know how to do this. Number 8, the square root of 162. Well, the square root of 162, you could start with tiny little numbers. You could say, well, 1 plus 6 plus 2 is 9, and 9 goes in, and the 9 will break out as a 3. But if you start with the biggest number, or take half of this, you know this is 81 times 2. And you have the square root of 81 times 2. Well, I can take the square root of 81. We're going to bust this joint. We're making a break out of here. Boom, boom. And we made it as a 9. We broke out as a 9. And so, but we left our buddy 2 in there because he's not a perfect square. And that's a pretty bad 9. And so it's 9 square root 2 on that. And so make sure you finish up the notes. For your own paper at the bottom, we have the homework, and we're going to start that together. But before we do, I didn't know if you caught the newest edition of the Where's Waldo book. When I was young, Mom and Dad, Mom take me to the dentist's office, take me to the doctor's office. I was sitting there. One of the favorite books I liked to read was Where's Waldo? And don't tell Mrs. Smith because, can you even read Where's Waldo if there's not really any words in it? But they came out with a new version of the coronavirus version of Where's Waldo, and it's just not the same. Let me show you a couple pages. Here's one of the pages from Where's Waldo, the coronavirus version. And so it's just not the same. Here's the beach. Nobody's around. There's Waldo. Didn't take very long. Then we go to downtown. Where's Waldo? Oh, he's right there. Just doesn't take very long. And even here, when we look for Where's Waldo, he's right there. And there is nobody around. And so quite the time that we're living in with that. And so make sure you do get your own paper out, and we'll set this up. And so try to keep it to the front side when you send me a pic. You can make multiple columns and write down notes 111 and problem 1. But copy the problem down. And so we got square root 27. And then we ask ourselves, what's going to go into the square root of 27? And so, Scott, what goes into 27? 9. Good job. And so we can write down 9 times 3. And then Baylor, which one of those is going to break out of jail? Ooh, the 9. Very good. And so what's our answer, Baylor? Oh, yes, very good. So that's going to be 3 square root 3. And so you don't necessarily have to show every tiny little step, but it's good to be able to show Mr. Nyson what you're doing. And so you can make multiple columns. 1, 2, 3. Maybe you can fit 3 columns in. That'd be great. So number 2 is the square root of 20. What times what gives you 20? And so we have Caden. What times what gives you 20? 4 and 5 is how you want to break it down, because one of those is a perfect square. You don't want to use 10. We want to make sure our square root sign goes down long enough. You don't want to use 10 and 2 because you can't take the square root of those. So you got 4 and 5. And who of those are going to break out of jail? The 4 is. The 4 is going to, boom, come out as a 2. A 2, just a 2. And so we have that. And so 2 square root 5. On your homework, just make sure that when you're done, look under the square root sign. There should be no multiples of 4 left. If you have a multiple of 4 left under the radical sign, you need to take the square root of it. So just scan those. No multiples of 4 under the square root sign. And then you got it. And so everything should be good. Keep sending me your homework assignments. And you can subscribe to my channel, I guess. I guess it's a channel. And so that's helpful. I think 90 of you have already subscribed. So that's a great job. And we will talk to you later. And some of you need to knock it off. Quit bugging me about making a new seating chart. I'm not making a new seating chart. And so no matter how much you bug me, you're going to have to stick with the seats you have. So, na-na-na-na, na-na-na-na, hey. Goodbye till Wednesday. We'll try to have something new for you. Bye-bye. Once I get it turned off.